Hey, you want to hear a story? Today we'll be reading Rain, one of my original short stories. This is a shorter tale, only about 10 minutes long, so feel free to put it on in the background and just listen. If you'd like to read along, I'll have words on the screen as well. I hope you enjoy Rain by Tobin Jacobson. Barney Richardson was drunk. Not the nice, half a bottle of wine drunk, where you fall asleep on your couch and wake up in the morning with nothing more than a stiff neck. No, Barney was drunk to the point where he was swimming in air, not quite at blackout levels, but deep enough to where his normally picture-perfect memory had shattered into dozens of fragments. All he knew was that he had to get home before what? Barney took off his helmet and attempted to rub sobriety into his eyes. The sound of rain was the first to drip through his pounding headache. He blinked several times, though it made no difference. Everything was dark, and a sudden fear crawled into Barney's throat. It choked him, told him that he'd lost his sight due to his own foolishness, that every mistake of the night had already been made. Panicking, the biker stumbled backwards. His boot slipped on the muddy pavement, sending him to the ground. After a minute of wheezy, desperate gasps, Barney's breath returned to him. He thought about getting up, but decided against it. His memory of that night was a splintered mirror on the ground, and what had broken it? He frowned, searching through the pieces. 6 slices to a lime, not quite 2 limes worth of Coronas, and shots? Shots, yes, because it was Brandon's birthday. So the first round was on the house, and no good boxer goes down after the first round. Brandon's birthday and the Friday night special. Stacy hated that Barney drank, said it was a money issue, but even she'd see that he'd been saving money tonight. Or she would, once he got home and told her that the first round was on the house, so they'd almost definitely have enough money for rent come Monday. Then Stacy'd apologize for threatening to leave. She'd see that it wasn't an addiction. It wasn't a waste of money. Just a way to let loose a bit on the weekend. Brandon! It was for Brandon. Good old Brandon, what's his name? Not every day you turn 30. The thought of giving Stacy an "I told you so" was enough to pull Barney to a sitting position. He'd have to do it in person, as he'd left his phone at home just to be free from that woman for one night. Pain stabbed through his right side, causing him to rock back and forth in the mud. Struggling to remember where it came from, he dredged through his brain until he found an intact memory. Ike, the new tire tech. He'd been in the process of butchering Mr. Brightside on karaoke. Brandon and Barney were playing billiards. Barney was stripes. He'd poked Brandon with the cue stick, said that he was a real solid guy. Brandon must not have heard him, because he didn't laugh. It was a tied game when they paused it for a round of shots. Something was jabbing into Barney's lower back, painful enough to pull him back to the present. He shuffled sideways to reposition, but the object was still there. Grunting loudly, he rose to his feet, a process that took a good 30 seconds. Barney reached into his back pocket and pulled out a small leather holster. His fingers rubbed over familiar gold lettering. He opened it, and a small, heavy metal tube fell into his hand. Barney turned the flashlight on. The beam was blinding, causing him to squint until his eyes adjusted and he could take stock of his surroundings. His bike, a once shiny Harley, was now covered in mud and lay on its side, idling softly. He was underneath an overpass on some 2-lane highway that looked like every other Midwestern road he'd driven. Rain poured down on both sides, blocking the beam with a wall of water every time Barney pointed the flashlight out. Barney doubted he'd feel safe driving stone cold sober in an SUV on a night like this, so going out on the bike again was out of the question. Nevertheless, he carefully stood his Harley upright and pocketed the keys. Gotta do something, Barney muttered. The biker staggered over to one of the concrete pillars holding up the overpass and leaned against it. How did he get here? Barney groaned, then yelled until his voice broke. Blood pooled in his throat and he spat it onto the ground. The rain kept the sound in, muffled and suppressed it. Nobody heard him. He couldn't even hear himself. Brandon had accidentally pocketed the 8. Barney had laughed, and Brandon had turned almost as red as his politics. Another round, and the memories turned from a slideshow to a darkroom with only a few photos developed. Brandon standing over him, holding a cue stick like a spear. Ike, oblivious, starting the opening lines of blank space. A round. Not a shot, but a ball, the 8-ball crashing through the window. Brandon blocking the door, the splintered cue stick like a club in his hands and a drunken rage in his eyes. Barney felt his side. It was damp, and not from the rain. Yes, Brandon had blocked the door, so the only way out was to follow the 8-ball, but getting through the window had been a real pain. Barney began to cry. Stacy hated puns, but she'd find that one funny. She'd laugh, and Barney would join her, and they'd hold each other and just laugh, because otherwise they'd cry, and they'd done enough of that already. Stacy. Barney hardly recognized his own voice, cracked and broken as it was. Sobriety was flirting with him, but Barney knew himself well enough to realize a clear head was well over an hour away. He looked at the bike, then out at the dark wall of rain. His Harley was a 15-year love, but Stacy had always been his first. They'd always been jealous of each other, and tonight, only one could bring him home. Barney turned away from the bike, clenched his blood-stained teeth together, and stepped out into the rain. The night swallowed him whole. One shaky hand clutched the flashlight, the other was balled into his side. The beam was strong enough to illuminate a step or two ahead, but nothing further than that. There were no road signs, no side paths, or signs of civilization. All the world was the rain-drenched highway that Barney stumbled down. The road grew blurrier, and Barney's feet felt like lead. Walking was harder than it had been even 5 minutes ago. Exhaustion, drunkenness, and fear all offered themselves as excuses, but all fled as Barney pointed the flashlight at his own feet, which he hadn't been able to feel for hours. His faux leather cowboy boots, surely ruined by now, were ankle-deep in water. Frowning, Barney sloshed forward as he resolved not to look down anymore. Heaven must have been drier than a bone by now, yet even as the thought crossed his mind, the rain seemed to beat down even harder. A horrid thought appeared out of nowhere, crawling up his bleeding torso and into his waterlogged ears. What if you're going the wrong way? The blood drained from Barney's face, and sweat began to mix with rain. The Harley had been on its side, nearly perpendicular with the road. Why had he chosen this direction rather than the other? Frantic thoughts raced back to the overpass, but any reasoning Barney had left behind was long gone. He coughed, and the taste of whiskey mixed with vomit and blood filled his mouth. Each breath understayed its welcome, and Barney's chest began to tighten. Desperate, he staggered into a sprint. Water poured into his boots, pulling each one off his feet in quick succession. Neither received a second thought. Barney hiked his knees to his chest with each step, trying to stay above the water, but he overbalanced and fell face first towards the pavement. The water slammed the biker's injured side like an overzealous boxer. It was over a foot deep by now, enough to keep Barney's head from hitting the pavement. He uttered a soundless groan and pushed himself up. The flashlight was gone, and its empty holster clung to the inside of his pocket. The holster was all he had left. Even the keys to the Harley were lost, though Barney neither noticed nor cared. Darkness was over and under and all around him in every direction, yet through it he could see Stacy's face. Were his eyes open or shut? It didn't matter, as he was swimming now, inching closer and closer to his wife. He pushed off the ground once, twice, but when he tried a third time, his feet met only water. There were no currents or waves, only blankets of unceasing rain. Up and down were synonymous, and air turned to water as Barney struggled to breathe. Stacy's image drew closer still, and Barney threw out his arms in an attempt to touch her, to feel her and hold her close, so he could wake up from what was surely a nightmare. His arm passed through her face, and she disappeared. Barney was alone in the blackness. Tears blended with rain in a deluge that filled his lungs. For a moment his hand rose above the waters, but raindrops pounded his fingertips in an assault that received no more resistance. His lips mouthed words as he gave up the last of his strength, words that had no meaning even to him. Dozens of watery arms cradled Barney as he drifted away, though none of them were Stacy's.
Good morning, Kansas. Welcome back to JRNX. I'm your host, Zach Carney, here with the news and tunes you need to kick off your day. State Patrol officers found a body roughly 10 miles from Stafford this morning on the westbound side of Route 50. The deceased's name is Barney Richardson, according to Officer Nick Griffith. Though Richardson was found with multiple lacerations, police say drowning is the most probable cause of death. Griffith encourages anyone who recognizes that name, Barney Richardson, to come forward. Officers have not yet ruled out foul play. They have expanded their investigation to Cheney State Park and the area around Stafford Lake, though both bodies of water are over 12 miles from where the body of Barney Richardson was found. For your traffic update, police have closed off a 3-mile stretch of Route 50. They said barring any further discoveries, though, they'll have it open again early this afternoon. As for weather, we're entering the second week straight of this heat wave, so be sure to stay hydrated out there. Meteorologists say it'll likely be another week before we start seeing even a drop of rain. Until next time, I'm Zach Carney, and thanks for listening to this morning update from JRNX.
Thanks for listening. I'd like to say a special thank you to my friend Joshua Schumacher, the voice of Zach Carney. If you enjoyed his narration, go drop him a follow. I've linked his Twitter in the description. Feel free to let me know what you thought in the comments, and subscribe if you're interested in staying up to date on the videos. I hope you enjoyed this tale with Tobin, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Good night.